Hi guys, Aceface back and welcome to another video. This is the next part in the Road to the Las Vegas Open 2016, sponsored by Wargames. I am very excited about this game. This is the first in a lot of awesome games that I've got planned, and I'm very privileged to have Mr. Commissr Warwicks down here to give me another crack at his Imperial Guard. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We are playing ITC rules in preparation for the Las Vegas Open. I will now look at the armies and we'll come back after that to deployment. But this is going to be a great fun game. Right guys, so here is my 1850 points of Tau. This is list selection number 2 or B. This is the one that was more favourable when I did my list video. I will put a link down below, so do go back and check the list video for the full detail of what this list is meant to do. So it is led by an Ethereal. He is my HQ, always a bit worrying, it's a bit soft and squishy, but does have his benefits. Next to him he has 2 units of Crute, bare bones, no upgrades. I have 1 Wyvara battlesuit white-eyed in this list rather than the 2, so that'll be interesting to go back to basics with just 1, but still a lot of nastiness there. He has his stimulant ejectors which always work well, and then next to him the 2 completed storm surges. So in this list I have a few extra points, so I'm able to make both of the guns the driver cannon, so the strength 10 on both of them, which is very handy. One has a flamer, one has the air fragmentation, and then they both have the 4-up invuln, they both have interceptor, but the one with the flamer and the orange head has got the precision shot, and then the new one over this side with the air fragmentation has got the Skyfire, which will be hopefully very handy in this list, in this game. And then the last part of the list is the ranged support quadre, which is your 3 units of, in this case, missile sides, and 3 units of Pathfinders. Those Pathfinders will be infiltrating with Shrouded to start off with, and will be able to give those broadsights a lot of marker light support. So that should be a lot of fun. So that is my 1850 points of Tau. It's the first chance to use this list in its completion, so it's going to be good fun, and now we'll go over and have a look at what I'm facing. Okay, so back on the channel is the Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum. A slightly different list from what I faced previous, looking pretty scary, but let's just go through what I'm up against.
Alright, so leading the army we've got Pask and a Punisher. He's got camo netting, heavy bolter sponsons. He's flanked by his 2 bodyguards there, 2 Legion Ross executioners. Both of them have camo netting as well, and both of them has plasma cannon side sponsons as well. Moving on to the other HQs, this is from the HQ section, but they're actually not taking up an HQ slot. We've got 3 Primaris Psychers, all of them are Mastery level 2. They've all drawn their powers from the Telepathy Discipline. If we move on to troops, we've got 3 platoons, 20 guardsmen in each platoon, and their platoon command squads there. We've got 3 platoon command squads, 3 platoons. very minimal upgrades. We've got one Voxcaster in each of the big platoon squads, and we've got a Voxcaster in the command squads and a grenade launcher in the command squads. And then finally, from the fast attack choice, we've got 3 Vendettas with no upgrades. And I guess the only other thing to mention is fortification, 1 Aegis defence line.
Wow, so that's 3 flyers to deal with, so this should be very interesting. I have Skyfire in this particular list, good thing too, because I think this is going to be quite dangerous to my army, but we definitely have the tools to deal with that. It should be a really fascinating game, and I'll come back once we've rolled to see what mission it is, and we do the deployment, and we'll see where things are after that. This is going to be epic. Okie dokie, so the armies are deployed. We are playing ITC Scenario 5, which is Big Guns Never Tire primary and Modified Maelstrom secondary. The bonuses are King of the Hill, Warlord and Linebreaker. So this is the deployment as we are with Vanguard Strike. I've got 2 of the objectives down this side. So we've got the 3 units of broadside spread along. The ethereal is joined to that unit, getting a little bit of a bubble there. The wide-eyed is over this side, ready to pounce. I've got the 3 units of infiltrating pathfinders in that ruins over there. We've got the Kroot in this forest, as well as the Kroot hanging out by the edge of the deployment over there. Just a side note, I did get for my Warlord trait -1 to reserves, which could be quite handy. Over here, as we look at the Imperial Guard deployment, very, very characteristic of an Imperial Guard army, in their masses, all hidden, hunkered down behind their Aegis defence line. Then we've got Pask and his crew kind of hiding, I suppose is the best way of putting it, behind that ruins. Lurking with intent maybe would be more of an aggressive way of putting it. But they're very close to that objective, but also just making sure that they've got a fair bit of cover and a lot of line of sight blocking potentially from the storm surges currently. The last little unit is we have 1 little unit hiding back down on that objective there. So the objectives over here, 1 in the middle and 1 over there. There is 1 of the big blob squads in reserve, and obviously the 3 Vendettas. So this is where we are at the moment. I am currently going first, so we'll see in a minute whether Commissr Warwicks decides to seize, and then we'll come back at the end of turn 1. Okay, so bottom of turn 1 for the Tau, there was no seize. So what happened? Basically, the storm surges shuffled up. Made a bit of an error. I did forget to anchor them, which would have been helpful next turn, but never mind. Warwick was very kind to offer me that I could still do it anyway, but I am practicing for a tournament. I wouldn't have got away with it there, so I'm not going to get away with it here. So I forced myself not to take that. The white-eye did his bounding leap and jumped over just in between those 2 ruins there. He nova charged successfully to get his gun even more shots. Everything else pretty much stayed where it was. Most things weren't going to get in range this turn, apart from obviously the big guys. In the shooting phase, the Pathfinders that are all hidden amongst in what I'm going to name as Pathfinder Tower, put all their marker lights in split between 2 on the command unit of Lehman Russes, Pask and Co, and then I managed to get, so I got 2 marker lights on them, and then I put 4 marker lights on the big blob squad that, as you can see, is pretty much no longer with us. So then in the rest of the shooting phase, the white-eyed who had bounced in between those 2 ruins used his haywire gun to try and take out the Lehman Russes, and I managed to get 2 hull points off, but I failed to destroy it. And that was kind of him. All the broadsides that were in range, which was just 2 of the 3 units, took out a few of the squad here, not too many casualties, no major issues, and then the Storm Surges used the 4 marker lights from the Pathfinders on this unit. All their cluster missiles as well as their smart missiles went on these guys. We cleared out majority of them. The Primus Psyker in there stood firm using his Invon and managed to bounce off one of the shots. I then used the Strength 10s to go at the Lehman Russes, and decided to opt to keep hold of the destroyer missiles at the moment. So the Strength 10s went into the Lehman Russes. The first shot bounced back and managed to kill the remainder of the guard unit, leaving just one guy, which is a frustration, as I'll tell you in a bit. The second blast did hit. I did manage to try and get a hull point off this this first tank, but the cover save was made, so no damage done to that one. So in the rolls, I rolled to get one objective, which was over here, which I was going to try and potentially clear things off and maybe get the white-eyed on, and I got destroy a unit. And as you can see, with that one guardsman hanging on in there, I failed to get my objective, so I get to score none of those Maelstrom points. Warwick needs to take that objective as well, which he obviously has an objective secure unit now very close to it, so that should be dead easy for him. He also has to try and score the objective that's by the Croot and by the broadsides, which is very unlikely this turn, but it very much looks like I will go into turn 2 1 Maelstrom point down. A lot of damage done, definitely we've made a mark, but it's exciting times as we now go into Imperial Guard turn 2. Okay, so bottom of Imperial Guard, turn 1. Quite frightening for me, but I got very, very lucky. So basically everything sort of shuffled around, the tanks kind of conga lined just to make sure that they got a good line of sight on the white-eyed. That one irritating guard that survived sat himself firmly on that objective. And then basically shooting happened. So the tanks gave the order for them to basically pop smoke after they shot, and then they all unloaded into the white-eyed. And as you can probably see, well, you can see, he is still alive. Yeah, this is why you never, ever, ever take a Riptide without Feel No Pain. If you do it, you are crazy, because 4 successful Feel No Pain rolls are the only thing that's keeping that guy in the game. So he's down to 1 wound, just scraped through. The other guard unit also unloaded on him, but you know, just didn't really have anything special going for them, so just managed to bounce off his armour there, and he survives. So at the end of turn 1, Warwick does score 1 Maelstrom point. I failed to kill anything and I failed to get his objective. So the current score at the end of turn 1 is 1-0 to the Astra Militarum as we go into Tau turn 2. Okay, so bottom of Tau turn 2, a good turn. Both the Storm Surges have now anchored. Movement happened, not too much to move. I needed to hold the objective that's in my deployment zone as well as kill a unit. Warwick needed to kill a unit and claim my fire objective down there by the Croot, so unlikely for that one to happen. So the white-eyed, who can't boost this turn, just kind of shimmied around to make sure that he was in range of the tanks. The Storm Surges came up a little bit before they anchored, and the broadsides again sort of shuffled a little bit. That was about that. Into the shooting phase, the marker lights, the ones on top could see the tanks. They tried to marker light them up, but Warwick prayed to the dice gods, and my dice rolls were shocking. So no marker lights on the tanks, but the rest of the marker lights did find their mark on the big squad that was here, getting 3 marker lights on them. The white-eyed finished off the last, the last wound of the front tank. So that was pretty good. Some poor saves made there, otherwise he probably would have hung in there. And then the big guys, the 2 Storm Surges, as well as the broadsides, hammered their shots home on the big blob squad, eventually taking them all out. The large blast from the Storm Surges went over onto the tanks, and we managed to immobilise the 2nd tank. So Pask will now leave his unit and dash around to do his own thing, and we've severely decimated this Imperial Guard line. But we have some danger coming in potentially, so would you like to roll for your reserves?
So, Blob Squad. Yep. This one, they're all the same, but no, re-rolling Skragos. Nope. This one. Yep. And the last one. Yep.
Okay. So that is the Blob Squad and 2 Vendettas are on their way in, and they mean business. So we'll see what Imperial Guard can do now as we go into Imperial Guard turn 2. Okay, so bottom of Astra Militarum turn 2, in came the Flyers, as well as this big blob squad, very much targeting to try and put some hurt on the Storm Surges. The other sort of limb russes pretty much were already in the right position where they needed to be to make sure that they dealt with the white-eyed. So shooting came, and Pask, very much enough was enough, and he shredded the last wound from that white eye, even without all the wounds having to save. Just his Wrens alone brought down the white eyed. So Warwick has got his man. He has hunted him down and takes the white eyed out of the game, which definitely restricts my movement now. My manoeuvrability is severely restricted, but there's still a lot on the table. So down this side, some absolutely spectacular bad luck from the Astra Militarum. They used all sorts of psychic powers to make this unit really potent, and I'd felt this pain once before as well, so I knew what was coming. These guys misfortuned the unit of Storm Surges. They then made themselves re-rolling through prescience, and then they had orders from the command unit that was close by, so they were absolutely piling in the shots on these Storm Surges with that Rending as well. On top of that, obviously the 2 Vendettas have come in as well for the kill. All that shooting, and I rolled so hot on my saves. To be fair, there wasn't many rolls to make. I think the rolling in the first place was very unlucky for me, only to have to make about 5 or 6 saves. But with that feel no pain and a good invon, I managed to hold firm from all the shooting from the guardsmen. Then I meant to say that actually I did intercept with the destroyer missiles on the 2 Vendettas, making them both jink, which really was all I needed to do, because that pretty much took the potency out of their shooting. But still, the 2 of them did manage to shred one of the wounds from the Storm Surge. So I really got off lightly. I did hold my 2 Maelstrom points, so I held my objective there, and I did kill a unit in my turn. Warwick also killed a unit because he annihilated the last wound from the white-eyed, but obviously was never going to get close to this objective. So we now draw the Maelstrom on 2 points all as we go into Tau turn 3. Right, so bottom of Tau turn 3, very much target was to make sure these guys weren't around to do that trickery again, because even though I got away with it really quite easily, it could have been so much different. I've seen that obliterate my Riptide before, and I was very conscious of that after being hit with that. So my objectives this turn was to take the objective where the Kroot are, and also to take the objective right down in the far corner where the Imperial Guard are hiding on there. So obviously that at the moment, particularly with the White Tide now out the way, that's pretty much a lost cause. So it was very much all about trying to get rid of these guys, try and cause some trouble to the flyers and make sure I hold that objective. So movement wise, everything got staggered about. Obviously the Storm Surges are now anchored, so they couldn't move. The Markalites marked up the Leman Russ in the middle. Pasca's now separated from them, so Markalited him up, which was going to be good, and then I unloaded on him basically. So I decided to use both the blasts, which now will be 4 large blast strength 10 shots, as well as I thought 1 cheeky destroyer missile for good measure, saving the other 3. So bearing that in mind, I had about 6 Markalites on him, so I boosted ballistic skill right up. I removed the cover and made one of those missiles destroyer. First destroyer hit, bang, there it went. So bye-bye to that tank, but because I did it in that order, I did lose all those large blasts because I'd committed to it, and that's the way that we've decided to play it in this game. After that, all the cluster missiles and the smart missiles all directed down at the blob squad. Actually, again, some of the order of command I didn't do quite right, and they hung in a little bit longer than they should have done, but I did just manage to take them out in the end. The broadsides used their strength 7 at the Vendettas. We kind of just spread that shooting, just tactically really. I didn't expect to do anything, but strength 7, it's capable of doing some damage, but making them both jink and taking away a bit of the threat. And obviously, that's kind of going to help me next turn a little bit. So far, obviously, the Kroot are sitting on their objective, which is very good. I've tried to bubble wrap that a bit, but we'll see what happens as we go into Imperial Guard turn 3. So bottom of turn 3 for Astra Militarum, a really strong turn. So the last Vendetta did came screaming in. I did try and intercept it just to try and make Warwick think about making a decision, because I had the 3 destroyer missiles from a non-Skyfire Storm Surge left. So I decided to just try and see whether I could get jink ultimately, but Warwick decided not to, which I was surprised about because he seemed quite adamant to jink everything else. So I thought I was going to get away with it, but no, didn't jink it, braved it, and I rolled 5. So he was at full ballistic skill, and he came in herring after the Ethereal, which was a good target for him. The other Vendettas kind of shimmied around, to be fair, more than anything, all trying to do some damage to the broadsides, being only toughness 4. Pask kind of sheltered himself into the ruins, try and give himself some cover save, try and make him a bit more survivable, not wanting to give away that warlord. The little command squad sheltered behind that ruins, and the other guys stayed put. The objectives needed this turn, obviously for me, as we said previously, were to hold my objective over there by the Kroot, and also to hold the far objective held by the Imperial Guard, and Warwick's were to manage to take my objective, in fact take both my 2 objectives, which was going to be pretty hard going, but the target was clear. The target was going to be the Ethereal, do some work there, and that's what happened. So shooting phase, it was all about the Vendettas. 2 of them were snap firing, but the one that wasn't was obviously going to be quite potent. The snap firing one did manage to get 2 hits on the Ethereal squad. I made both my cover saves, so no issues there. The full ballistic skill one, we had another 2, in the end 2 saves to make. I lookout served them both to the broadsides. Unfortunately, I failed to make either of the 4 pluses, so both the broadsides went down, leaving just the Ethereal. I then couldn't believe it, I failed my leadership test, and the Ethereal, even being leadership 10, ran off the board, giving a Maelstrom point there, and slay the Warlord as a bonus point. So we are now tying on 3 Maelstrom points each, with Warwick already picking up some bonus points as well. So even though, as far as from a threatening point of view, the Tau have the numbers and we have the ground presence without a doubt, the Imperial Guard are starting to swing it a little bit, and are causing some trouble to those objectives. So we'll see how we get on as we go into Tau turn 4. Right, so a pretty quick turn 4 for the Imperial Guard. So both the Vendettas that were stripped down to 1 hull point dashed off the board. The last remaining one that wasn't snap firing couldn't quite get a sight on the broadsides without having to fly past them, so decided to try and go for the Kroot, knowing full well that I needed to hold that objective. So if they could run off, that would help. The Imperial Guard's objectives for this, Maelstrom objectives for this turn were kill, but obviously unlikely unless those Kroot run off the board. So they flew over there. Pask just sort of, he's staying there, he's not going anywhere. He knows he's out of range of what he really needs to be, but as soon as he goes out in the open, the Storm Surges should pile on the hurt, and the other guys are just hiding down in their ruins over there. So in the shooting phase, the Vendetta easily stripped off the 3 Kroot that were out in the open, even though I did go to ground, but took them off, but they managed to make morale, so they stayed put. Pask had a couple of goes at the Storm Surge, but only the heavy bolters in range, so didn't do much damage there. So at the end of that turn, I did claim 1 Maelstrom point for holding my objective, and Warwick didn't manage to get any because his were both kill. So that means I take the lead on Maelstrom. I'm starting to get a lot of ball coverage, and the Storm Surges are on the march. So it's going to be interesting. If I get some good rolls, I could put an end to the Maelstrom this turn, potentially, as it will be tricky for Warwick to come back. But there's still all to play for. It's quite hard for me to do much damage to Pask with him hiding in that terrain, and the Vendettas now is obviously he's right back in that corner. So the amount of damage I can do this turn is going to be fairly limited, but we'll see how we get on as we go into Tau turn 5 and potentially the last turn of the game. So, end of turn 5 for the Tau. I got hold my objective yet again in my area, but also I got another kill. So pretty good, because very achievable, both of those. So in the movement, the Storm Surges continue to make their assault on Pask, because they can't seem to kill him by shooting. So maybe if the game goes on, they might get close enough to stomp on him. But that looks like the only hope at the moment, because he ain't going nowhere. So they moved up, the broadsides kind of were already basically where they needed to be, and so were the Kroot who had stayed put the turn before. So very much what I wanted to try and do, King of the Hill is one of the bonus points, so I want to get as many units within that central part of the board as possible, so I pushed into that area to make sure that was a key holding point for me. In the shooting phase, the Pathfinders shot into the Vendetta, managed to get 1 marker light. Again, the fact that it doubles up for the broadsides is really handy, because then I used that to basically take him out. We're on rear armour with the boost to ballistic skill. The broadsides took him out the sky, which was great, because that would have been a bit of a danger buzzing about. I'm very worried about these Vendettas as this game closes out. Then the Storm Surges both tried to use their blasts on Pask, didn't manage to do anything yet again. He made his cover save, so he hung in there. One of the guardsmen, the other side, was killed off by the blast, scattering a bit. But then I made a bit of an error, and it might well cause me to be in trouble, but you know, you live and learn. So I hastily elected to use all my missiles on these guys, and what I should have done was one at a time. That's the way I should really be playing it, but I elected them all on there. Obviously overkilled them, even just with the smart missiles, but then forgot that there was that little usage unit just behind those ruins that potentially will easily hold that objective, which is obviously going to count towards the primary. So not ideal there whatsoever. A bit of a slip up on my behalf, but the board is pretty clear. We've just got those 2 units on the board. The Vendettas will arrive again, both on one hull point each. I can't intercept them. I have nothing to hurt their front armour, so it's going to be what damage they can do. I have a feeling I've got an idea where their targets will be, but we will see. It's going to be a very interesting end to this game, as the objectives are still very much up for grabs as we go into Imperial Guard turn 5. So, end of turn 5 for the Imperial Guard. A really solid turn. They needed to kill, and they also needed to take my objective, which they weren't going to do. But bearing that in mind, the Vendettas came back on from reserve. Really clever move, because they found their mark, flew on, nothing to intercept them anymore, and both of them pinged off the 2 remaining broadside units. They were both out in the open, nothing they could do, peeled them off very easily. Other than that, Pask obviously down the far end took some random shots. Well, I say random shots, he didn't. He was in range. He did unload on the Storm Surge. Managed to take a wound off overall, so both down to 7 wounds each, but not enough to really cause too much damage. And that's pretty much it. So at the moment, as it stands, we are drawing the primary, the big guns, but I am currently winning the Maelstrom, and we are drawing the bonus. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. We just rolled and the game is going on, so we'll see what happens in turn 6 as it goes on into Tau turn 6. Okay, so bottom of turn 6 for the Tau, incredibly frustrating. So the cards I drew was to take this objective here. It's currently in open ground after the broadsides were taken out. It was also to take the objective up here in the enemy deployment zone. So that had to be pretty much the target. I didn't want to particularly come back. The plan was always to go forward to try and do some damage to Pask. So we stomped forward, managing to try and keep in King of the Hill. We want to make sure we keep King of the Hill, that's important. Then we unleashed hell on the poor little guardsmen the other side of that objective to make sure we cleared them off, got rid of them, and then unleashed hell on Pask. Two large blasts, strength 10, both hit, both penned, and unfortunately the saves were not made. But when the results went through, even with AP2, just 2 weapons destroyed, and I couldn't even take out the cannon that I wanted to take out. So really disappointed. He seems absolutely unkillable. But you know, I scored my Maelstrom point, which should keep me the lead on Maelstrom. But it's looking slightly worrying, I'm not going to lie, guys. These 2 birds are going to cause me a lot of grief. I might be praying for a 7th turn, to be really honest with you. But we will see as we go on to potentially the last turn of the game, Imperial Guard turn 6. Okay, so end of turn 7 for Tau, and it's been pretty epic, to be fair. The game obviously went on, and I kind of decided to just carry on my march. King of the Hill in the middle, obviously I could risk losing that, but I thought, you know, I really want to try and deal with Pask. He's been an absolute nightmare all game. He's been an absolute trooper. So we decided to march on forward and try and deal with him, and also stay in range of this objective, which is in there. which we also kind of wanted to make sure that we kind of held on to for the main mission. So nothing else in the backfield really could do anything. The recruit marched into the middle again, just to make sure, try and keep in range of that King of the Hill, just in case that bonus point really counted for anything. Didn't really make the run that I needed to get the other side of the building, stay out of line of sight of the Vendettas, which are menacing, but you know, it was best I could kind of do. So they kind of hid in there. Everything else is stationary. Crew are just sitting on that objective. They probably were taken off it potentially. Not really too sure at the moment what the Vendettas can do. They're going to do some damage somewhere, but it's going to be interesting. Who knows? But basically, in the shooting phase, the only two weapons really that meant anything were the two strength 10s. They both went on Pask, and eventually we managed to glance him out, get rid of him for Warlord, which potentially would be a crucial point. I think ultimately it's probably irrelevant at this stage, but you never know. Those Vendettas are going to make sure they cause some trouble on this last turn as we go into definitely the last turn of the game, and we will see the last turn for Imperial Guard. Right guys, and it is over. So what a game. A game that actually I really thought at the beginning I could have run away with, and potentially it could have been maybe a tabling first couple of turns. The Guard would not sit down and die. The same as last time, Commissr Warwicks has put a sterling effort in, even with, and we've just been discussing it, ultimately a weaker list, a good list, but a weaker list in comparison to this vicious cheesy Tau list. But wow, he has put in a shift here, because in this last turn he's managed to shift me off primary and has actually won the big guns, which puts us into a tie as far as I won the Maelstrom and he has won big guns. The bonus points goes to me on a 3-2, just due to the fact I took out Pask last turn and have dashed in for line breaker into his deployment zone. So yeah, wow, what an awesome game. Really like breathtakingly good. Last couple of turns were all about the tactics. I completely outpowered him start of the game, but the tactical part of the game really came into action in the last throws of this game. Really close, a lot of fun. So I can't thank Commissr Warwicks enough for coming down. Please do jump over and check his channel out, give him a sub, I know he will appreciate it. You'll be able to see some first faults, maybe even some after faults, but definitely an epic battle report on his channel, so please do check that out. And as for me, I go on to my next challenge, so this week has only just started, and I will see you in the next battle report as this Tau go on to their next challenge. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.